It is mindful of a legacy of service and devotion to this country set by my beloved mother, the late Queen, that I deliver this, the first King's speech, in over 70 years.
He is 90 years old. He has served this institution for over 80 years, longer than most people who read about the monarchy have been alive. He inherited his title at age 6, after his father died in a wartime aircraft crash. He has performed royal duties with quiet, absolute discretion through 8 decades of British history. He is one of only 2 people in the entire royal family who holds the rank of Field Marshal in the British Army. The other one is the King. And this morning, at Windsor Castle, the Duke of Kent made his final significant move. He didn't consult the King. He didn't consult Camilla. He didn't route it through the central royal vault or ask anyone's permission or follow the hierarchy that usually governs where significant jewels end up. He chose a person. He transferred one of the most historically significant private jewelry collections in royal history. Sapphires that trace back through Princess Marina, Queen Mary, and Princess Augusta in the early 19th century, directly to Catherine, Princess of Wales, on Princess Charlotte's 11th birthday. The timing was not an accident. Nothing about this was an accident. This is the story of a 90-year-old man's final act of institutional clarity, and what it says about who he believes will carry this monarchy forward, what the sapphires are. Before we go any further, it matters to understand what these jewels actually are, because this isn't just a story about beautiful objects. The Cambridge Sapphire Parure is a matching set, a tiara, a necklace, several brooches, earrings. The stones originated with Princess Augusta, Duchess of Cambridge, in the early 19th century. They passed through Queen Mary, who gifted them to Princess Marina, the Duke of Kent's mother, in 1934. That gift is everything, because it was a personal gift, not a state transfer. The sapphires never entered Taos, the central royal vault system that the monarch controls. They remained private property, belonging to the Kent family, governed by inheritance law, subject to no one's authority except the owners. The Duke of Kent understands this distinction better than almost anyone alive. He watched what happened when pieces of the original collection were sold at Christie's in the 1970s, when the family faced financial pressure. He watched historic jewels scatter because they had ended up with people who couldn't afford to keep them and had no official platform to wear them. He carried that memory for 50 years, and he was not going to let it happen again. The man who made this move. People who don't follow the royal family closely sometimes forget that the Duke of Kent exists. That's partly by design. He has never sought attention. He has never given the kind of interview that generates headlines. He has simply shown up. Ceremony after ceremony, engagement after engagement, decade after decade, with a discipline that most people would find impossible to sustain for 8 years, let alone 80. He is the longest-serving Duke in British history. When he says something matters, it matters. When he makes a decision about his estate, it isn't casual. It is the product of 8 decades of watching how this institution works, what it needs to survive, and which people actually understand their role within it. After his wife passed in September 2025, those who observed him during the period of grief noted something specific. He wasn't withdrawing. He was focusing. Every meeting with his estate advisors, every legal briefing, every private conversation about the disposition of his property carried the particular intensity of a man who understood he was running out of time to get this right. He had one final mission. He was going to execute it with the same precision he had brought to everything else. 6 years of watching. The assumption most people make is that the Duke of Kent barely knew Catherine, distant cousins, a few formal nods across a palace balcony. That assumption is wrong. In September 2020, Catherine was appointed joint president of the Scout Association, serving alongside the Duke, who had held the presidency since 1975. This was not a symbolic appointment. It was a transition, a deliberate 6-year process of observation during which the Duke watched Catherine work up close. He watched how she handled responsibility, how she treated the traditions of the past, not as constraints to be modernized away, but as structures worth understanding and honoring, how she showed up for the quiet, unglamorous engagements that don't generate coverage but do generate trust. He is a traditionalist who believes duty is not a performance. It is a practice. It is something you either do or you don't, consistently, without asking whether it will be noticed. In Catherine, he found someone who understood that. The name on the jewels. There is a symmetry in this transfer that the Duke is almost certainly aware of. The jewels are called the Cambridge Sapphires. For over a decade, Catherine carried the title of Duchess of Cambridge. To a man who thinks in terms of institutional continuity and historical weight, the idea of these specific stones returning to a Duchess of Cambridge, one who actually performs the work of the monarchy, must have felt less like a gift and more like a restoration, the right things returning to the right place. His sons took different paths. George married a Roman Catholic. Nicholas converted. Those are personal decisions they were entirely entitled to make. But they are private citizens. They don't stand at state banquets representing the crown. They don't receive foreign dignitaries. They don't appear at the significant ceremonial moments where objects like these sapphires do their actual work. He told his advisors plainly, these sapphires require a public life. They need to be seen at the heart of the nation's ceremonies, not stored in a private safe or sold to settle an estate. His sons had chosen their own journeys, and he respected them for it. But Catherine was the only one who could give these stones a purpose. What changed his mind completely? There is one moment that appears to have crystallized everything for the Duke. May 2025, the Time 100 Health List. Catherine's name on it. To most people, an appearance on a prestigious magazine list is a nice honor. To a 90-year-old man quietly evaluating who should carry a historic legacy, it was something else entirely. He had watched what Catherine went through in 2024. The cancer diagnosis. The treatment. The months of absence from public life, during which 1,000 theories filled the space she left behind. And then the return. Careful, honest, measured. Not triumphant. Not performative, just present. By early 2026, independent polling placed her approval rating at 90%. In a country that has grown profoundly skeptical of its institutions, that number is not just remarkable, it is almost unprecedented. For the Duke, it was confirmation of something he had been watching build for 6 years. Catherine had become, in every measurable sense, the living embodiment of the monarchy's bond with the people it serves. He reportedly told his executives during a private legal briefing, "Tradition is not about looking backward. It is about ensuring that what is precious is held by those who can inspire the next generation." And then he said, "Catherine has shown a strength that goes beyond titles. She has earned the right to wear these stones." That is not the language of someone making a casual gift. That is the language of someone making a verdict. At 9:45 this morning, legal representatives for the Kent estate arrived at Windsor Castle. The paperwork was finalized. The transfer was made binding. And shortly after, at a private family gathering at Windsor, Catherine appeared wearing the diamond and sapphire girandole earrings from the original Cambridge set. These pieces, once the pride of Princess Marina, had been considered effectively retired from public view. Their reappearance today was not a coincidence. It was a signal, deliberate, precise, and unmistakable to everyone who understood what they were looking at. The Duke's collection has transitioned. The Kent era as an independent collecting force has closed, and a new chapter has begun, one centered on the woman who will one day be queen, and on the daughter she is quietly building a legacy for. Catherine has been doing something that hasn't received much public attention. She has been carefully assembling a private jewelry archive intended specifically for Princess Charlotte, a collection that stands entirely independent of the official state vaults. Pieces chosen not for their value in the traditional sense, but for their stories. For the weight of history they carry, and the women who carried them before. The Cambridge sapphires are now part of that archive. The Duke knew this. Reports suggest he was aware of what Catherine was building for her daughter, and that it influenced his decision. He had watched too many significant pieces disappear into private collections or be broken up for resale. He wasn't going to let that happen again. By placing the sapphires in Catherine's hands on Charlotte's birthday, he was doing something very specific. He was making sure the line of inheritance was visible, that it was documented, that there would be no ambiguity later about where these treasures were meant to go and why. Charlotte is 11 years old today. By the time she is queen, these stones will have been hers in practice for decades. What this says. As changes, there is a structural shift in this transfer that is easy to miss if you're only looking at the surface. Camilla, as queen consort, has unparalleled access to the official royal collection. The legendary pieces held in trust for the nation, The great tiaras, the historic brooches, the items that appear at state banquets and coronations, she has first consideration for all of it. But those items are not hers. They belong to the institution. They travel with the position. When the position changes, they move on. The Cambridge sapphires are different. They belong to Catherine. Privately, legally, without qualification. They are not subject to the vault hierarchy. They do not answer to whoever controls the royal collection at any given moment. They cannot be recalled or reassigned or quietly redirected. They are hers. And one day, they will be Charlotte's. That distinction between what you hold temporarily by virtue of position and what you own permanently by virtue of someone's deliberate choice is the entire point. A palace observer put it simply. The queen has the crown. The princess has the momentum. The last public appearance, on April 21, 2026, during a ceremony marking the birthday of the late Queen Elizabeth, the Duke of Kent made what many observers believe was his final significant public appearance. He stood for a time in quiet conversation with Catherine. The photographs from that day show something that is difficult to describe precisely. A particular quality of attention passing between them. An elderly field marshal and a future queen, standing together in the way two people stand when they understand each other without needing to say much. Those who have studied the royal family for decades described it as a symbolic passing of the torch. Not dramatic, not staged, just two people who had worked alongside each other for 6 years, sharing a moment that both of them knew was significant. 6 weeks later, the legal paperwork was finalized. The conversation in the photographs was the prelude. What a 90-year-old man knows. There is something worth sitting with in this story. The Duke of Kent has watched this institution for 90 years. He has seen the rise and fall of reputations that seemed permanent. He has seen people who appeared essential become peripheral. He has seen the public's trust given and withdrawn and rebuilt and lost again. He has watched jewelry of extraordinary historical significance disappear into private estates and private sales, scattered by the pressures of inheritance and expense, and the simple absence of anyone with the platform to wear them. And at the end of all that watching, he made one final choice. He did not choose protocol. He did not choose hierarchy. He did not root his decision through the structures that would have given someone else the authority to redirect it. He chose a person. He chose her based on 6 years of working alongside her, based on watching how she treated things that didn't belong to her, with care, with respect, with the understanding that her role was to be a steward rather than an owner, based on watching her face a health crisis that would have broken many people and emerge from it with more public trust than before. He chose the woman who, in his judgment, would carry these stones forward in a way that honored everything they had already survived. A 90-year-old man's final act of institutional clarity. Not a gift. A verdict. The earrings appeared at Windsor this morning, diamond and sapphire, once the pride of Princess Marina, thought to be retired from public view. Worn today on Charlotte's 11th birthday by the woman a 90-year-old field marshal decided, after 8 decades of watching this institution, was the right person to hold them. The chapter is closed. The decision is binding. And somewhere in the Kent family archive, the legal document confirming all of it will sit for as long as the monarchy exists. Do you think the Duke made the right call? Drop your take in the comments. I read every single one. If this story moved you or gave you something to think about, hit the like button. It genuinely helps this channel. And subscribe if you haven't yet, because we tell royal stories with the human weight they actually carry. See you in the next one.